Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here. This time reviewing on Pokémon Detective Pikachu. Now, as you know, Pokémon Detective Pikachu is an urban fantasy mystery film that is meant to be a loose adaptation to the 2016 game for the 3DS, and is also meant to be a loose adaptation of it. Now, the premise of the film is meant to follow Tim Goodman, who is this, kind of former Pokemon trainer, as well as working for an insurance agency, and has given up on his dreams of being a Pokemon trainer, and has pretty much kind of become estranged from his father, and instead kind of following the life of a ordinary person. Now, after basically being contacted by the police about his father's disappearance and his tragic death, he pretty much goes to Rhyme City, which he ends up meeting a talking Pikachu voiced by Ryan Reynolds, and it turns out the Pikachu has a connection with basically Tim's father. And I would have to say Ryan Reynolds does a decent job for Pikachu, because he kind of gives that distinct kind of smooth talking detective voice, and definitely does a good job in giving the voice. Now, with Rhyme City, I do like the idea that Pokemon and humans live side by side, and it kind of gives you this zootopia kind of feel, which I think works kind of well. So, at the same time, Tim is also trying to uncover more about what happened to his father and the connections to it, as well as finding about this powerful drug that can kind of boost Pokemon's abilities. Also, as well, uncovering what exactly happened at an abandoned lab, which you've also got Lucy, who is kind of a junior reporter, who her Pokemon is meant to be Psyduck. And what's actually interesting, the actress who plays Lucy, Catherine Newton, actually plays basically in Paranormal Activity 4, which I think this film was her bigger break. So, throughout it, the film is kind of like this standard mystery solving kind of story. We kind of basically got Tim kind of basically learning more about what's going on, as well as starting to miss his father and learning more about his past, and I think they do quite well at it. But I think at the same time the plot does go a bit too quick, and I do feel like, yeah, it does take time with it, but not properly. And also, when you've basically when you've also got the Pokemon living side by side, you've basically got a kind of from different regions. For example, you've got Pidgeot, you've basically got Cubones, you've basically got Dittos, you've got Mr. Mines, and so many Pokemon living side by side in harmony. And also, what's actually interesting is basically how the opening does feel a bit like a recreation of basically Pokemon the first movie, when you've got the kind of Mewtwo escaping from the lab. And what's interesting is when you've got a kind of clip with a trainer dressed in red battling a trainer in a Pokemon League sort of video, it's heavily implied that trainer's meant to be red, the legendary Pokemon trainer you battled in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Now, I do feel like, yeah, the villain is a bit predictable, and I think they do kind of foreshadow it, and I know they do kind of alter it from the game for the film to make it like a counterpart to Tim and his father, which I think was meant to make perfect sense. And I feel like, unlike the Super Mario's Brothers film, I think Detective Pikachu definitely does a good job. It kind of gives you this, like, mystery solving story, the same thing that Zootopia did. And yeah, basically, Detective Pikachu is like copying the same plot from Zootopia, only without the enforced racism, which I think made perfect sense. And I also know that there has been developments for a sequel that was announced in before the film's release. So I'm hoping we can basically see what they can do with the film now, and basically see if we can get a cameo of Red again, or basically a reference to more from the Pokemon anime. And what's actually interesting, in the recent anime Detective Pikachu, Pokemon Journeys, they do reference the Mr. Mime Mining Act. So I do feel somewhere Detective Pikachu searched through and definitely left a good movie. And I do give them some credit, so a thumbs up. Still good and still alright. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.